Hey guys, Shadowz here, welcome back to another Gear 6 video. Today we're going to be discussing the campaign story, including the main Swarm Hive, the Creator Riftworms, and the Swarm origins in Gear 6. During the Gears 5 campaign, the Swarm invasion continues to spread across Sarah, as locust burial sites all over the planet begin to emerge, and the awakening and crystallized locusts in the Scions carry out what they started all of those years ago on Emergence Day, with the mission of destroying the human race and colonizing the surface of Sarah, declaring the planet as their own. Realizing that the arrival of the Swarm enemy threat only meant that war was once again imminent, Marcus Phoenix and Damon Baird agreed that the first course of action would be to reactivate the Hammer of Dawn program to give the COG a barrier of defense against the ever-growing Swarm Hives. With the help of an old data disk drive given to him by Adam Phoenix over 25 years ago in the Pinnacle Tower, Baird learned of an abandoned research facility on the island of Azura, where the Hammer of Dawn had been originally constructed and launched from to end the Pendulum Wars. It also contained a missile silo with an original prototype satellite that could be the first step in restoring the network array, getting the Hammer of Dawn orbital laser back online. Enlisting the help of Delta Squad, Baird sent JD, Del, Kate, and Marcus on a secret mission to Azura in order to activate the rocket and launch the prototype into orbit. They also managed to find an external hard drive containing useful information on the UIR secret space program. Using an old UIR contact, Baird convinces old Kilo Squad member Garen Paddock and the Nomads living out in Vazgar to help the new COG launch the UIR Hammer satellites that have been sitting in dormant at the UIR Cosmodrome facility as a way to re-establish the Hammer of Dawn network online and the required amount of satellites needed to have a controlled targeting beam. After successfully launching additional Hammer of Dawn satellites from both the abandoned island of Azura to the sandy Nomad territory of Vazgar, Delta Squad returned to New Ephyra with the Hammer targeting beacons and to discuss the operation details of Baird's plan for relaunching the Hammer of Dawn as a last straw defensive tactic to protect the capital city of the new COG. As I discussed in my previous Gear 6 story video on the channel, Marcus Phoenix made a super important announcement to the group of what I do strongly believe is going to be the main storyline narrative plot of the Gear 6 campaign by saying the following. The Swarm have their queen. That means they've got a special hive somewhere, a nexus, some place where they're vulnerable. Look, I'm gonna level with you. While you were gone, Jim was raising holy hell about getting you hooked back up to the hive mind. Don't worry, I've talked her out of it, but I need you to think about what you saw in that vision. Every detail. Is there anything that helps us? Marcus believes that the Swarm having a new leading queen must mean that they have a Nexus-like special hive somewhere, that Kate Diaz's vision nightmares actually include hidden details on her knowing where the main Swarm hive is, and could be the difference between the Swarm consuming the planet to humanity being able to strike back at the Swarm and their new queen in Gear 6. So in this video, I wanted to break down Kate's nightmare vision that happens in the opening sequence to the Gears 5 campaign. As you can see on screen in the video right now, the Gears 5 cinematic intro starts off with DNA at the microscopic level. The strands of cells are bridged between barriers that make up the circulatory system. A close-up of a single red blood cell floating through plasma can be seen to begun erupting with mutation as the blood cell genetically changes, being overpowered by a forming of crystallization. This seems to be affecting every red blood cell in the stream, awakening the system in full force. During the second battle of Azura at the end of the Locust War, Delta Squad successfully activated Adam Phoenix's emotion countermeasure machine, which sent out a blue blast wave of radiation that engulfed the whole planet, targeting and killing off all lambent cells on Sarah, as well as the emotion-based lambent parasite, which had been the sole reason behind many major events including the Pendulum Wars, the origins of the Locust, Emergence Day, the Locust War, Rustlung, to the lambent pandemic, while at the same time was killing off all life on Sarah and the planet itself. In the aftermath of the emotion countermeasure weapon ending the Locust War after 17 years of fighting and what the COG assumed was a global mass locust extinction, the Locust corpses began to become encased with an incredibly dense emotion crystal based structure that formed around the Locust bodies, protecting their remains with an indestructible shell. With the creation of the Locust Horde during the early years of the Pendulum Wars by Dr. Niall Sampson, the Locusts were genetically designed with the ability to evolve and adapt, with their DNA allowing them to hibernate and change to withstand generational conflict. After the emotion countermeasure had been activated, the Locust Horde collapsed and to humanity appeared to have been killed off alongside the lambent life forms. However, the emotion countermeasure simply triggered the Locust Horde's genetic response to evolve, causing their DNA cells to vacate the emotion, which crystallized and broke through their scaled flesh. Seeing as how the blood red cells within Kate's nightmare vision share the same traits of emotion crystals breaking out and forming, it must mean that the intro is based upon something that has been affected by the emotion countermeasure machine and is either related to the Locust Horde or shares similar DNA cells such as the indigenous creatures of the Hollow. Next up, we transition to what looks like to be a blood vein as the river of blood flows alongside the spreading of the emotion crystallized mutation that seems to be becoming very widespread across all parts of this vision. There's also the biological light masses that look very similar to swarm pods and the inside environments that make up the swarm hives. Kate's nightmare vision then moves on to some fascinating teasers and reveals as we see a few different body structures such as tendons connecting tissues, subterranean sharp spikes to the scaling of the swarm hive-like tentacles. As the vision comes to an end, some of the most important shots are shown as the sequence offers a few major details, including what looks to be a large brain that has been affected by the emotion crystals, as well as also the infestation of the swarm tentacles as they swivel in and out of the brain's anatomy. The next two shots seem to be then showing off two different hearts as the secondary main heart can be seen oozing with emotion-infused magma as it beats above a sea of trembling blood. Kate's nightmare vision is definitely indicating that this is based upon a living creature, with the organs including the brain and multiple hearts, combined with the scale of those large rib cages. Those features are only known to exist within one creature in the Gears universe, and that is of course the almighty prehistoric ancient Riftworms. The Riftworms were a giant worm-like subterranean species that were known to be the largest and oldest animal to have ever existed on Serra. During ancient times, the Trinity of Worms burrowed their way through the crust of the planet and created the Hollow, an underground network of tunnels that were connected to each other and was divided into the outer and inner Hollow. As the semi-intelligent creatures devoured everything in their path, leaving behind a rich nutrition manure that fertilized the soils of the Hollow, it led to the creation of the diverse ecosystem of plants and animals as the Trinity of Riftworms created new life in their wake, headed deeper underground, and for some unknown mysterious reason went dormant. During the Locust Lambent Civil War, Creator Riftworm revealed to Scourge the inner sanctum within the Locust Temple of the Trinity, which included 3 banners depicting each of the Trinity of Riftworms, with also referencing the middle being the Destroyer Riftworm that should look very familiar to all Gears fans alike. With the successful launch and activation of the light mass bomb 14 years into the Locust War by Marcus and Dom on board the Tyro Pillar train that carried the missile, it was sent crashing into the Emotion Lake sinkhole below in Timgad Valley, where the light mass missiles were fired using the map targeting data, bringing total destruction of the Outer Hollow, the krill species and their breeding grounds. But ultimately, unfortunately, the light mass bomb also awoken the Destroyer Riftworm from being dormant for centuries. While the Locusts had suffered huge losses to their armies, the Horde survived and came back stronger than ever, bringing with it the arrival of the Destroyer Riftworm that Creator Scourge commanded and used against the humans by sinking their cities of Tolo, Montevado, and Alima in an attempt to weaken the Jacinto Plateau and sink Jacinto, finally leaving humanity without a safe place to live. Delta Squad was able to infiltrate the Destroyer Riftworm from within after having their King Raven helicopter swallowed up and managed to kill it from the inside with nothing but the chainsaw bayonet on their lances as they cut through flesh, dodged crunching bones and acidic vapors, chainsawed the arteries of several hearts, to shredding their way out to safety. 28 years later, the skeletal remains of the Riftworm were used by a group of outsiders who built a settlement within the corpse called Riftworm Village, where once the creature that was the Destroyer turned into the inhabitants of new life. Seeing as how Marcus thought it was super important in making sure to ask Kate to think about what she saw in her visions, including every single detail and if there was anything that could help out the new cog. Summarizing Kate's vision nightmare in the opening sequence of the game, it does include the emotion crystallization of red blood cells, a huge tentacle infested brain and multiple hearts, as well as also, given what we know about the creation of the Locust, the Horde sharing DNA with the Riftworms and how they were affected by the emotion countermeasure weapon. There is huge potential behind the theory that Kate Diaz's nightmare vision at the beginning of the Gears 5 campaign is actually a teaser for the Gears 6 story by revealing that the Swarm's main special original hive could be the Creator Riftworm, which possibly even ties into the origins of the Swarm. The Destroyer Riftworm being named and confirmed inside the Gears of War Rise of Rome comic series and being a part of a trinity of worms that the Locust worship as deity gods. I would assume that the Trinity of Worms must represent the Holy Trinity of being the creator of life, the destroyer of life, and the preserver of life for everything that has ever been on Serra. After the activation of the emotion countermeasure machine to end the Locust War, destroying all lambent-infected life forms and crystallizing the Locust across the planet, the radiation blast could have also affected and targeted the emotion in the cells of the dormant Creator Riftworm, as seen throughout Kate's vision, causing the rise of the second Riftworm of the Trinity as the first original Swarm Hive, which could also explain the origins of the Swarm, with the Creator Riftworm awoken and crystallized by the ICM, leading to the creation of new life in the swarm of creatures such as Swarm Snatchers, Swarm Pouncers, Swarm Carriers, Swarm Leeches, the Hive Beasts, to the biological masses that make up the Swarm Hives, and why the new swarm creatures work together with the evolved emerging surviving locusts in the science. Please make sure to leave me a comment down below telling me what you think. What is your guys' opinion on my Gear 6 story theory for the main Swarm Hive, the Creator Trinity of Worms, and the Swarm Origins? Hope you guys have been enjoying the Gear 6 and the Gears of War informative videos on the channel recently. I have a lot more videos planned on the way for you guys, but if there is anything in Gear 6 that you want me to address and talk about specifically in a video, definitely let me know. So there you have it guys, full details on the Gear 6 story theory with the main Swarm Hive, the Creator Trinity of Riftworms, and the origins of the Swarm in Gear 6. Leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I shall see you in the next one.